What's up guys, back with another video, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about the open beta for Destiny 2 that has finally hit the PC. And I've got to say that compared to the PS4 beta, I think I'm definitely enjoying the PC beta far more. Mainly because Destiny 2, like all other shooters, greatly benefits from running at 60 FPS. And while I think that the PS4 version plays pretty well for 30 FPS, the decreased input lag that 60 FPS offers makes Destiny 2 a lot springier, more responsive, and by extension, more fun on the PC. In fact, I would go as far to say that the PC version has the potential to become the definitive version of the game just because it runs at 60 FPS. I also have to admit that I like how sniper rifles and shotguns are no longer exclusive to the power weapons category like I remember from the PS4 beta. In fact, it's nice that you can get some weapons like handguns to use as your primary weapons, or how you can find submachine guns that fill both the primary and secondary weapon slots. Having versatility between these different weapon types is really awesome in my opinion. With all of this said, after playing the Destiny 2 PC beta and playing a little bit of the original Destiny, I'm kind of surprised how little content the Destiny 2 beta has. If you think about the original Destiny, complete with its patrols on several planets, the story missions, the strikes, the Crucible PvP, and the raids, the Destiny 2 beta on all platforms hasn't really shown us all that much about the game. And while I will admit that I didn't play the original Destiny's beta, I've looked around at articles talking about it, and supposedly most of Destiny 1's old Russia, or the Earth area, was open to explore during the original beta. So considering the Destiny 2 beta's lack of content, as well as some issues I had with the original Destiny, I figured I could talk about some of the reasons why I'm a little bit worried about Destiny 2. Now, this isn't meant to be a video that bashes on Destiny 2, as I do like certain aspects of the game. However, I did want to discuss some issues I could foresee with the game in the future. But I guess without further ado, let's discuss the beta's lack of PvE content. For a game that has a major PvE component, it seems strange to me that the majority of the content that you can experience in the beta is PvP focused. And while I suppose you could argue that Bungie is saving all of the PvE content for the final release, the fact that the beta has 2 PvP modes compared to just the one PvE strike is kind of weird to me. After all, a big part of Destiny 1 was either doing the patrols, doing strikes, or doing the raids. And the fact that none of those activities are featured in the beta is kind of weird. Especially because I would say the more fun and memorable parts of Destiny 1 were the experiences that I had with the PvE content and not the PvP content. Other than the announcement of the European Dead Zone about a week ago, and the announcement that PC players will get to visit an area known as the Farm for a short time later today, we hardly know anything about the potential PvE areas in Destiny 2. Because so little PvE content was shown in the beta, it may mean that there won't really be much PvE content in Destiny 2 at its launch. And if this is the case, I could possibly foresee this upsetting a lot of players that play Destiny mostly for its PvE. Or I could be totally wrong, and Destiny has even more potential areas to patrol than the original. It has more strikes and more raids than Destiny 1 had at its launch, and Bungie is trying to just keep things tight-lipped. There's also been a story that's been circulating for a little while that Destiny 2's file size on Xbox One is supposedly going to be roughly 29 gigs of storage. On the one hand, this is good because it won't take up 50 gigs or more of space. On the other hand, the low file size requirement listed on the Xbox One could mean that there may not be a whole lot of content in Destiny 2 at launch. At the same time, the official Destiny 2 website specifically lists that the game's file size is at 68 gigs, which is actually bigger than the original Destiny, complete with both the Taken King and Rise of Iron. Still, it's also possible that we could be seeing the lower file size on Xbox One due to the 4K textures that would be available on the PS4 Pro or the PC, and these may end up requiring an additional 38 gigabytes. For those of you that regularly follow the channel, I frequently cover Fallout 4, and earlier this year, Bethesda released a high-resolution texture pack that clocked in at 58 gigabytes. Keep in mind that this was larger than the size of Fallout 4 Vanilla when it released back in 2015. And my point here is a similar thing could be happening with Destiny 2 between Xbox One and PS4 Pro, where the Xbox One is getting the standard version of the game, where the PS4 Pro version is the standard version with those 4K textures. Still, I will admit that I could be totally wrong about this, and Destiny 2 launches, and we get more content than Destiny 1, complete with all of its DLC. While I must admit that I wasn't playing Destiny 1 at its launch, supposedly one of the main issues with Destiny 1 was that there were major content droughts throughout the game's lifespan. Destiny 1 had a period of about 3 months between its release and the release of The Dark Below, and The House of Wolves released 5 months after The Dark Below. Now, The Taken King released about 4 months after The House of Wolves, and the longest content drought of them all was between The Taken King and The Rise of Iron, which The Rise of Iron didn't come out until a year after The Taken King. As someone that has experienced content droughts with other games, I have to imagine that the content drought between the release of The Dark Below and House of Wolves must have been particularly brutal, especially since these two pieces of content were small DLCs compared to something like The Taken King or Rise of Iron. Even while Rise of Iron and Taken King were big expansions, a year-long wait between these two is also fairly brutal. The thing is, most games usually release all of their DLC content within a year of release, and I fear if post-game content doesn't come out at a regular pace for Destiny 2, there is a good chance that many people that bought the game at launch will get bored. Thankfully though, Activision's CEO has addressed concerns about the content droughts for Destiny 2, and the developers at Bungie do seem to be aware of the fact that Destiny 2 should have a more steady stream of content coming out in order to meet the demand. Hopefully, Bungie can deliver on providing content on a more regular basis for long-term players. Another concern for Destiny 2 is going to be centered around the PC version. While the PlayStation and Xbox versions release next week, the PC version doesn't release until October 24th. Almost 2 months after the release of the console versions. And I have to wonder how releasing Destiny 2 late on PC like this is going to affect the player populations when the game finally releases in October. And while we could certainly see something like we saw for GTA 5, where the game sold insanely well despite the fact that it released 2 years late, it's also possible that releasing Destiny 2 later on PC could prevent the game from getting as much traction as it would have if all 3 versions were released at around the same time. I think another thing that you have to consider is that the console version's reception could end up greatly affecting the sales of the PC version of Destiny 2. For example, if reviews come out and say that Destiny 2 isn't particularly good, I think a number of PC gamers may just end up skipping the game entirely. Conversely, if the game is really good, then I suspect people will buy the game in droves no matter how long it takes for it to come out, similar to what we saw with GTA 5. Ultimately, time will tell if the delay between versions will really matter, especially since there are reports that once all 3 versions are released, new expansion content should be released on all platforms at roughly the same time. Okay, so this final thing that I'm about to discuss is a controversial subject within the Destiny community, but a major concern I have with Destiny 2 is that it won't have matchmaking for certain activities like we saw in Destiny 1. Now, before you get angry in the comment section below, I'd like to mention that there is a good case to be made for not having matchmaking for some of the activities, because I think it's true that you need to play with a well-coordinated team for some of these activities. With this said, it's worth pointing out that actually doing the raids and the Nightfall strikes in Destiny 1 was necessary to progress through the game, and locking these activities behind a friend requirement can prevent people from accessing and completing content that they would otherwise be able to complete. And yes, I'm aware and have used websites like Destiny LFG in the past, but I also have to ask, why isn't there a feature within Destiny itself that functions like Destiny LFG? Furthermore, why do I have to go to a third-party website to put a team together when a social space should be accommodating that need within the game itself? While I could totally be wrong and we come to find out that Destiny 2 has matchmaking, or it has some system in place that allows you to easily get a group together, I can also see that it's entirely possible that we will encounter the exact same problem that we currently have in Destiny 1. The fact that I have to get together a specific group of real-world friends, or I have to go to a third-party website to get a party together is absolutely ridiculous. And this is especially the case with the PC version, as all PC users will have a keyboard at their disposal to chat through Blizzard's BattleNet service. While this may date me a little, I remember the days when I could chat with people through Diablo 2's BattleNet to help organize lobbies, and I would be kind of stunned if Destiny 2, a game that released almost 15 years later, doesn't have the same functionality to help you interact with randoms to put together raid parties. In fact, if this functionality was included, it would make it completely superior to the PS4 version in my mind. With all of this said, even though I'm a little worried about Destiny 2, there's a pretty good chance that it will come out and be a fairly good game. I think some of the concerns I have, like the content droughts and some of the things I mentioned about the PC version, shouldn't be too big of a deal. That said, I do have pretty big concerns for getting groups together to tackle some of the endgame content, and it is possible that there could be a lack of PvE content for Destiny 2 at launch. But I suppose we'll ultimately see when the game finally releases. Otherwise, guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. I know that you guys are subscribed for Borderlands and Fallout content, but I figured I'd try something a little different and see how you guys respond to it. So if you're liking what you see here, feel free to leave a like, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.